Good evening. I'd like to call the Alton Board of Selectmen's meeting, November 2nd, 2020, to order at 6 p.m. If you please all stand for a pledge of allegiance, a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Gentlemen, there's only one thing I'd like to put underneath announcements, and I'd just like to put it as chairman's comments, if that's all right with you, gentlemen, or I can wait till selectmen's reports. That's fine. And I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Again. Motion was made by Reuben Wentworth to approve the agenda as amended, second by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. LaRochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth? Yes. Vote is in the affirmative. Until further notice to comply with the RSA 91-A, the state emergency and governor's orders, restriction on public gatherings, the town is limiting attendance at public meetings to conform with the current social distancing guidelines. The town will also continue to offer remote access for those that cannot attend or wish to remain at home. To remotely attend the meeting, audio and video, visit our website, www.alton.nh.gov. On the day of the meeting for instructions or telephone the Selectmen's office, 603-875-2113 or 603-875-0229. There continues to be no public input at this time. There's nothing on emergency management update, I believe. Yes, there is. The chief would like to come up. Chief Heath, would you come up and join us?
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
You know, Chief.
Do that. So I know I spoke at the last meeting about Halloween, kind of elaborated. It was already on the agenda, so I was going to be here, so I figured I would just let you know how the recent events went and everything else. So we first had the Harvest Festival that went very well. We did have Halloween trick-or-treating hours this weekend. And by all reports that I've got, everything went very well. The general public and the community were very cooperative, took the guidelines to heart, came up with a lot of innovative ways to hand out candy and keep the social distancing. So by all means, I'd like to, let you know and also express to the public our appreciation from the emergency management team for all of their support and their efforts to further, comply with these guidelines that are set forth. Other than that, it's kind of it's a hot topic of news. Most people know that our numbers are spiking right now, more than usual throughout this. So we do have to be diligent and pay attention to what's going on because we're not out of the woods yet. What's happening now is the weather's going to start getting colder, so those outdoor venues that everybody was taking advantage of for socialization are going to now move to indoor venues, which is going to keep people in closer proximity to one another and more risk of exposure. So it's just something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. Everybody throughout the states has to do it at this point in time and continue to monitor it. As you can tell, this being the first night that the public was welcome back to the board meetings. We've opened those back up. We're going to continue to progress in forward direction right now, depending on how things are. Like I said, we have to watch those numbers very closely and see how things play out over the next few weeks to make sure they don't continue to climb. But other than that, things seem to be going very well. We are going to be looking to close, the east side restroom is closed as normal at this point in time. We're looking to close the west side restroom at this point in time too. And then we're also going to be looking forward to see what, if anything, that we can do to facilitate opening the senior center or maybe partially. It's something we have to look at closely because with the winter months, we're also concerned about our seniors population and them being able to get out of home as well. But
Thank you, Chief. Job well done.
Thank you.
Approved.
Good job.
Moving on to announcements, the town clerk's tax collector's office will be closed on Tuesday, November 3rd, due to the general election. The election will be held at St. Catherine Drexel Church in the lower level, 40 Hidden Spring Road, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Town offices will be closed on Monday, Wednesday, November 11th, in honor of Veterans Day. The third announcement I'd like to make, just gentlemen, and it's a little kind of unprecedented, but as we move forward to tomorrow, to our presidential election, I'd like to just reach out as we all go and the community goes to vote tomorrow, that we all remember that we're townspeople, friends, and neighbors. And then we leave tomorrow, no matter what the outcome is, that we all respect each other's opinion. And I hope that we give thought to our nation tonight, that we all can come out of this election calm and with civility. And that we keep our interest in our nation as it was founded, for the people. And that we all respect each other as we can go forward. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Additional public comments and questions, concerns. I did have one, gentleman. I will read. I was going to keep it for my selectmen's report, but it's kind of nice. Nice letter by Pete and Susie McDowell of 58 Tom Road. Dear Selectmen, this is a letter of commendation to the Town of Alton Roads Department. In the spring of this year, Tom Road, a dead-end road in East Alton, was completely modified, regraded, and paved. Tom Road, originally part of 28 North, became an entity in 1965 when a new section of 28 North was developed from routes 11 and 28 in Alton to Springfield Point. During the Town Road project, the members of the Roads Department and manager, Ken Roberts, were professional, friendly, and conscientious. In addition, they communicated regularly with the affected homeowners to assure satisfaction with the finished project. Alton residents are fortunate to have such a dedicated and productive employees. Thanks to them and to you for your leadership. Sincerely, Peter and Susie McDowell. Nice. Liz will make a copy of this, put it in your folders, and also send it down to the highway department.
Yeah. Nice to hear back.
I was just told we had another announcement. Date, November 2nd, 2020, reference Waterworks Department third quarter testing result. The town was found in violation with regards to the arsenic level May 26, 2020. A follow-up sample was collected and results were received on October 28, 2020. The results were 0.0032 milligrams. These results are significantly lower than the second quarter results, which were 0.019 mgs, exceeding the MCL, thus putting us in violation. Superintendent Mitchell advises that 12 more samples will need to be collected in order to show it is as below the 0.019 mg test on an average. Therefore, the town is out of violation status. Please keep in mind that the results have lowered significantly and do not exceed the MCL for arsenic. Levy Park will not be turned on to the system until we are lifted from violation status. Questions may be referred to the Waterworks Department at 875-4200. Yes, sir.
Not turned on Levy Park, that's where the problem is. The system that takes the arsenic out down there that we can put, or that we have to adapt the system in there to take that arsenic out before we use that, because we don't want it to freeze up again like it did last year.
Correct. And as she states that Levy Park will not be turned on until we're listed from violation status. And
Find that out?
we can have Courtney come at our next meeting,
Yeah.
unless she's on the phone.
Can't turn it on.
What is on here?
Have her at the next meeting to find out.
We'll have her at the next meeting.
Because
Yeah.
we gotta adapt something in there. It's better than replacing all the mains down there again.
It could have possibly been that when the pump was down and everything else, and we got everything turned back on.
I think,
Yeah.
And I think this has to do with more Jones's Field than it does Levy Park, only because that one was down and we turned it on at that same time after we had everything, the pump we had.
Right, well, that's why I'm just asking, because just before we'll turn, Levy Park's gonna stay off.
Yeah.
If there's a problem there, then we gotta figure out how we're gonna fix it.
We'll have her at the next meeting. Town administrator can do that for us.
Okay.
Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, moving on. Appointments. And we did have an appointment, I thought, earlier with the gentleman over here on the parking.
so that is down at the bottom.
Down at the bottom, okay.
Discretionary
Yep.
and,
Conservation.
in your binder, I can talk
Yep.
about it.
Okay, moving on to new business, solid waste, solar RFP results and approval. Tonight, we'll have Mr. Simons joining us, John Kubicki, and Andrew Keller. They'll be on the phone.
May I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
So, if you remember, I guess it was a year ago, maybe, presentation first came forward, and the warrant article was approved in March to allow you to go out to contract with a solar company for the capped landfill. Put it in your binder, you'll find a list of people, companies, and newspapers, et cetera, that the RFP posted at. There were no responses. So we did everything out again, had 2 responses, and those 2 responses are in your binder. Basically, if I can find the sheets of paper here, one is a proposal from New England Solar Garden with revenue streams, and the other is a company that basically said thank you, but no thank you.
The one that bid on it,
Division Energy.
is that the person that came in?
Yeah. It's a tough area, that capped landfill, because it's concave, it's not dome-shaped. And it's got some unique, there's a spring-fed water table underneath
They
it.
put it right over it, yeah.
Yeah.
That was, or told when they were doing
This is before you tonight for a hopeful approval, so that this can move forward to the next step.
Who got the voting?
Yes.
Gary, should I just ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Holt.
You said we're gonna move forward. This is a proposal tonight by this firm? Okay. Okay, I have,
They've been at 1 or 2 previous selectmen's meetings as well.
I have a few questions on it.
Yes, sir.
Ready for them.
I'm not sure if I can answer everything, but perhaps the people in attendance can.
Okay. Mr. Holt, I'll allow you to start with your questions.
Yes, my first one is, in the proposals, it says it must have New Hampshire DES approval. I looked through all the information. I couldn't find anything.
You want to answer that, Liz?
I think Andrew Keller can best answer that.
Mr. Keller, are you there?
that till they put.
I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Mr. Holt just asked a question. Did you hear the question?
I did. Thank you, sir. I can happily answer that question for Mr. Holt.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So what you're seeing in the proposal, Mr. Holt, is not the actual completed development work and permitting work. So what was referenced in here as far as getting the DES approval is that once the town, if the town were to choose us as a company to move forward with this project, we would spend the money to go through all the engineering to bring forward an amendment to the landfill permit that you guys, the state town has in place today, to allow us, hopefully, to install solar on that landfill. So we go through the extensive engineering process of making sure that the piles that are going to sit on top of the soil don't have any negative impact on the actual capped landfill. So all the engineering that goes into that work is what is presented to DES for their review. That takes, 4 or 5 months sometimes to get through that process. And then they evaluate all of the engineering that's provided to them, and then it's up to them to decide if, the engineering is sound and it will meet the requirements of obviously not having an impact on the capped landfill. So you aren't seeing anything specifically in this proposal that speaks to that, because the process hasn't begun until an award is provided to us to move forward with the development.
Next question, Mr. Holt.
Yes, I had a question on how you these solar panels are actually fastened or laid on top of the landfill. I believe they sit on top. And my question is, what kind of wind load can they withstand before they flip over?
So, good question. So typically what we'll do, part of that DES evaluation is to understand if we can put these are concrete ballast blocks. They're pour in place ballast blocks. So there's like a frame that's put in place and all the racking is installed before the concrete is poured. But before we obviously would do any of that work, part of the engineering defines exactly how big those ballast blocks can be. We want to make sure two things to your question, and specifically what I brought up earlier. Got to make sure that there's no impact to the downward direction on the cap. So that's part of the engineering that takes place with an engineering firm that we would hire to do all that work for us and present to the state. It would be the state's responsibility to make sure that that is accurate, correct, and again, won't have any impact. That also goes into your question, which is what happens if there was a heavy wind? How big of a ballast block needs to be placed for these panels not to be lifted up like a sail? I believe the wind load in this area that they model for is, I think, 120 miles an hour, I believe. So that goes into it. It's a site-specific analysis of the snow load as well as the wind load, because obviously snow load can have additional weight impact. I mean, the panels typically will shed the snow, but that has to come into play in the evaluation. I'm just checking the wind load right now for us, and it looks like the maximum wind load I think I'm seeing is 124 miles per hour. Is what the calculation would probably be. Between 100 and 124 miles an hour is what I'm looking at right
now. One more question.
Yes, sir.
At this time. The other company that refused to give us didn't want to give us a proposal, stated in their letter that there was we should have three-phase at the site, and which we don't have.
Correct.
Three-phase for electricity. And of course, bringing in three-phase is very expensive. How do you plan on answering that problem?
So that's part of our initial evaluation before we move forward with any project. That's the first thing we look for. That's the big fatal flaw in a lot of solar projects in New Hampshire. You know, we're a relatively rural state. There is three-phase, obviously around the state, but we are still relatively rural in that sense compared to some of our neighboring communities. So we do take that into account. And, we go to the site. We physically have been to this site. We had originally, I think, kind of brought this somewhat to the attention or had some interest in this type of a project. As we've done a project over in Milton on the first landfill site ever developed and built in the state, which we did. And then there was also one in Hillsborough, which was the only other second one that's ever been built, and we also did that one. So we do look at that very closely. I believe the measurement, I'm just double checking my math here real quick. I believe the distance down on 28A there, it looks like it's about, let me just check here. About 12 to 1,400 feet down the street to connect to the three-phase power. Again, we understand what those costs are. We take that into consideration when we put this proposal together. We build it into the project costs. We would expect, based on what we know a little bit about New Hampshire Electric Co-op pricing, that the cost of bringing three-phase up to that point would probably be in the $75,000 to $100,000 range. That's the cost borne by us and by the project. So that's a benefit, I guess you could say, another additional benefit to the town by having three-phase come up to the site. If you guys ever chose to put in some heavier duty, equipment out there, electrical, you have some of the infrastructure already up at the site for you guys to tap into.
Any further questions, Mr. Holt?
No.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes. What is your estimated time of start to completion of this project?
Yeah, so assuming, just making the assumption that today you guys said, let's go, let's move forward, and from here until the point where we would, complete construction, because the time of year we're faced with being, the end of the survey season. Again, this is a landfill. There's not really a lot of survey work to be done, but there is some of that work that we need to do. We might lose some of the winter months when we can otherwise get people out on site to do any additional survey work, if it's boundary work or topo work. We may lose that window. So I'm going to give you a conservative number. If this was, June, I would tell you it takes a year. But based on where we are today, I would expect probably a year and a half to get through the whole process. Again, the state process, I believe, is, I think they have a statutory limit of how much time they can spend. I don't know it off the top of my head, but we have to kind of put everything together and then submit to the state when we kind of have all of the survey work completed and done and engineering completed, and then their clock starts ticking. So I would give it a good year and a half to be conservative.
Okay, would there be any interruption in the use of the facility from the general public during the construction period?
No, I mean, like I said, this is our second landfill project that we've done in the state. That we built, so I can speak to how we've dealt with it. A lot of these sites are, relatively tight, from a transfer station perspective and flow of traffic. Looking at that site and being out there, we kind of have that kind of lower back corner of the landfill site where I'm not sure if you guys use that as like a boneyard, if there's an area where you might store, I forget exactly what goes down that end, but that lower area where the flow of traffic isn't necessary, I don't believe, going down to that dead end around the back of it would probably be the most appropriate place from a staging perspective. And again, we've worked with our communities in the past to make sure that, we can work during the times when maybe the transfer station may not be open, so we can work 5 days a week. But there is kind of a common respect of there's a normal flow of traffic to this site, and we don't want to disrupt that. And again, looking at this site, I think that lower area might be the best.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Whitman?
Not at this point.
Mr. McDonald? Mr. Simons, do you have anything you wish to add?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Say this is up and running, everything's fine, and God forbid it don't happen to you. What if you guys go out of business? What happens to the stuff that's there?
Yes, good question. So the most important detail here is that there'll be some type of surety that's required, either be it through their planning board process or it will be the state. Again, in the worst case scenario, nobody wants to be, left behind with a bag of bones of problems for the town to deal with. So there will be some surety in place to make sure that once the project is up and running, if there was something geopolitical, otherwise anything that could really be detrimental to this project, if there was a new legislative change to the rules that, restricted allowing putting solar on the grid or something really, really out of this left field, there would be a mechanism for decommissioning the system and getting rid of all the equipment and taking it off site. That's the easy answer, the quick and easy answer. The more advanced answer I'll say is that these projects, once they're installed and once they're up and running, they create, it's almost like owning like an annuity. It just creates cash flow. And once that the investment has been paid, typically these projects have some debt, have some tax investors that come into the mix, and once that investment has been paid down, it's an annuity for the next 20 or 25 years. If an entity, and we are not the entity that physically owns it, we are the developer, we bring the ownership group to the table who will own this, but we take care of all the permitting and all the development work at the front of the project cycle. Those groups that we work with are larger scale entities that own lots of solar around the country in most cases. And what they would, I won't say it's unlikely that they would go into business, but they're usually pretty big and pretty diversified. They're insurance companies, they're utility holding type companies. But if they did go out of business, what I've seen in the past is projects get swapped out or sold to another group that is up and running and does have a lot of these assets. So it's a very slight chance. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's a very slight chance that could happen and there would be an impact. But if it was the worst case scenario, there would be that surety in place to remove everything and take it away.
Okay. I got another question.
Sure.
If this is up and running again, say something happens and the stuff damage the cap. You have insurance for it? Is there a bond, or whose responsibility is that?
So that would be the insurance. Yes, first off, there would be insurance on the project, absolutely. Professional liability insurance from the engineer's perspective would be what would cover both us and the town. It's ultimately the engineering firm who is going to design this is going to work with the state of New Hampshire to make sure there is no impact to the cap. If for some reason they, misengineered this project and there was damage, that would be on their professional liability insurance to cover that as a professional engineer. And then again, we too would have, insurance on the equipment, but I don't expect that would be extended to that type of damage unless it was more of a, it would be the insurance companies kind of going probably head to head to see who's responsible. Ultimately, my experience is that if something occurred that damaged the cap during construction, it would be the construction firm's insurance that would cover that. If it was done due to design failures, it would then lean on the engineering firm who stamped the plans and submitted it to the state on our behalf. So there's a couple of different layers there of protection. Again, we've built these ones. We built one on the one in Milton. Again, there was disturbance to the grass, but no disturbance to any of the cap, any of the vents or any other equipment or any parts of the landfill. And we just had to make sure we reseeded the grass and make sure it was properly vegetated so there was no erosion that would take place. But that's an example of a real life situation that did take place.
Okay, I got one last question. And when this is done, do you put a perimeter fence around that on the perimeter of the landfill or no?
Most likely, yes. And I say that in that way because at some of our sites, the site itself it has fencing, to not allow people in. But there's a balance here depending on the system size where the National Electric Code would require it, and especially because of the public nature and public movement of people around that site. I would say more likely than not, the answer would be yes. It would be a fence around it to keep, again, because of the public being close by. Again, it's these type of projects, unless they went through it on a wire, there's not likely to be anything that could happen, but they could get curious and go up and, trip over their ankle and snap an ankle or something, and that's something the town doesn't want to deal with. We don't want to deal with. So it would be more than likely a fence around it. It wouldn't be it would be more than likely a ballasted type fence system because, again, we have to be very careful about penetrating, anything around that. And again, that would be part of the engineering work that would be done and presented to the state.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Virgil?
Now, you have your annual lease payment, annual pilot tax, then you've got a estimated savings.
Correct.
Now, the only one you're tying in up there is probably the landfill. Why wouldn't we get that other money where we should be saving it? Why wouldn't that be added into either your pilot tax or the lease?
If I think I'm following your question, were you asking why that $9,000 wasn't? Actually, maybe can I ask you to say the question again? Sorry.
The only one you'll probably be tying in is the landfill. Why wouldn't the rest of that money be added into the lease where we're not going to be using it? Understood.
Okay, sorry. Thanks. I thought that's where you're going with the question. So the way that the structure of our proposal works is that the first item, which is the easy one, is the town becomes a landlord to us. We're your tenant. We're leasing that land. that has no value to you. So there's the initial $10,000 a year that goes to the town. We would obviously, look to the Board of Selectmen to enter into a pilot, a payment in lieu of tax agreement on the equipment, which is, we typically see on landfills around $3,500 per year per megawatt. And then the last piece of it is, again, not required because, but we suggest it because the project will stand alone, not connected directly to the landfill site up there. The intent of group net metering in New Hampshire, as we call it, is that we can build a solar project on a landfill, for example, where there may not be a lot of electrical needs in the area. So you wouldn't physically connect it to your meter at the landfill. And what we have the ability to do is to provide a financial amount of money paid to the town that you can take that $9,000 and allocate it in your general fund to offset your electric bills on other meters around the town. At the end of the day, we're providing a payment in three components: $10,000 for the land lease, $3,500 for the town pilot, and roughly, it's an estimate, but roughly $9,000 a year is the amount of the payments, which we call a solar rebate. And you take those monies in and you can allocate them however you want. The $9,000 represents the total amount of value that the solar array would produce based on the amount of power it's producing from the sun.
Yeah, but are we gonna be able to negotiate this lease more or no?
Administrator, I think you can answer that question.
So you could,
I mean, because you've got fixed rates for 20 years. There's no increase in the lease or nothing.
so this
There
is,
should be some type of increase in there somewhere. I mean, in 20 years, that's gonna be worth a hell of a lot more than it is today.
so if you wish to negotiate, on any of these, now is the time to bring it up that you do have an interest in negotiating.
Well, I think we should, because a 20-year fixed is an awful long time with no increase.
Mr. Chairman? But it says here, terms, 25 years with 4 5-year extension options. Now, can we renegotiate money in those extension options?
Well, yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because you're giving a
Okay.
20-year fixed rate.
Well,
And,
yeah, but if we can we got 5-year.
There's 4 5-year extensions.
4.
yeah, that's after your 20-year fixed.
No,
That's after
Yes.
25 years.
no, it says 25 years with 4 5-year extension options.
And then you got to, yeah.
Does that mean within the
20-year fixed
25, or is that after the 25?
Mr. Keller?
Yeah,
Still
so
there?
happy to answer that. So our standard leases in New Hampshire are based on the amount of revenue these projects create. Our revenue stream in New Hampshire is substantially lower than our neighboring states. But what we do, our standard lease that we've signed with many other communities and on landfills, is that, yes, it is fixed for the first 25 years. After the 25 years, it goes up 25%. And then each 5-year increment, so at year 30, if we decide to extend it, it will go up another 5%. And then at year 35, it will go up another 5%. So there are our standard lease language does have some extensions in there. I traditionally like to provide the most amount of money to our clients at the beginning of the leases for us to adjust and to have like a kind of a cost of living increase each year structure. It would lower the initial lease payment down to $7,500 per year. That's consistent with some other towns that we've worked with. Again, I only want to remind the board that if this was an open field that the town owned, there would be a little bit more leverage on your end and also ability for me to agree to certain terms. But typically we see that a landfill project costs about 20% more to build. And that doesn't include the fact that we have the 3-phase power, $100,000 worth of upgrade costs away. So we take all that into account to be kind of fair and equitable. And, again, we work in a lot of towns around the state. So, you could do some research, you could check around, see what some of the rates have been, and I'm happy to share some of those numbers. So that's how we come to this place. Hopefully it's understandable. If it's more important to have like a little bit of an increase each year, but start a little bit lower, I have the ability to easily handle that request. But increasing the land lease over $10,000 makes the project difficult. One other way to solve that, and we did this in the town of Hillsborough with their landfill, is that taxing the pilot revenue was more important to them as a town than the lease revenue, just from an optics perspective. So what happened is we increased their pilot. I think it went up to like $4,500 and maybe $5,000, but we lowered the equivalent lease down the same amount so they could see more kind of direct tax revenue coming into their assessor's office. So there's some room to play around with the 10 and the 3,500. The 9,000 is also a little bit of, we could get creative, but that's just, those are some options you might consider.
The town council's looked at this, everything, has he signed off on it?
No, he hasn't. I did send him the information when they first came forward, and although I do know, as a matter of fact, that he has seen one identical to this in another municipality where I worked, so very familiar with this. But.
And are we going to participate in the, where is it? Solar rebate program as a town?
Yeah, that's the estimated
Oh, that's
energy savings. Yeah.
Correct.
all set.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more.
Mr. Holt?
My main concern is what was brought up earlier by Mr. Simons is the insurance. If that cap gets damaged down the road, 5 years, 10 years, who's going to be responsible? You can have different problems here. You can have a company that's gone out of business. The insurance company no longer has the insurance. They don't have the insurance. Should we be looking at some kind of a bond, guaranteed bond? I'm not up on that stuff, but I just want the town to be protected because this landfill we have, that capped, is a unique one in the state. I was up there the other day walking it, and every landfill I've seen and dealt with is built as a mountain. It's a dome. And this one is not.
No, we're trying to contain.
This one's got a valley in the middle. It has a water problem, a seepage. I'm just worried. I just don't want this project to come back to bite the town 10 years down the road.
I think that's something.
Yeah, and if I can if I might speak to that, I would just share with the board that, this is a proposal. There's no guarantee that this project will occur because we all collectively don't know what we don't know. To your points and your concerns about the unique nature of this, and Liz has done a great job when I first came to her and we chatted about this a little bit. This has some uniqueness. It has some challenges. We're going in eyes wide open. I don't want to be here in front of the board and say we're going to guarantee this project is going to go through. If it was an open field in the back 40 of a property the town owns, I could probably say comfortably that pretty guaranteed this project is going to happen. But when you deal with landfill projects, and again, we're the only company that's ever done them in New Hampshire, so we understand the nuances to working with the state. We've actually gone as far to work with the state directly to standardize a lease that allows us to work with some of the state-owned properties that are Superfund sites and otherwise, challenged sites to bring solar to those sites. They're equally very concerned. The EPA is involved in some of these sites. The DES is involved in these sites. So we very much, I get your concerns. I just share with you that until the engineering is complete and it's done by, we use very, respectable, well-established engineering firms in the state to do this work with us. Like you said, there's no guarantee that an insurance company insuring this could be in business in 10 years from now. There's no guarantee to know exactly what the impact of these panels will be on every single site. So there is some risk for the town. I definitely get that, and I respect that. We do everything in our power to make sure it's engineered properly, that we use only good equipment, that we use only good vendors. And honestly, the state really does hold us to a pretty high level to make sure these projects are done without creating issues for the town down the road. Because otherwise, it could come back on them, in some way, shape, or form. So I'm only saying all that to agree and appreciate the concerns of the town. When it comes to surety around these projects, it usually lands on the planning board process if that's something required. Sometimes with these projects, we've used the state as the approval process and then work with administratively with the planning staff to make sure that everything is in place to protect the town and make sure that, we don't miss a beat. So those usually land on the planning level, but I just want to speak to your concern.
Thank you.
Thank you. All set, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else?
Yes, would step in because they got to have their.
So I guess, Liz, to you, my only question would be, I don't want to make a request to approve this proposal tonight moving forward unless the town council has signed off with it and he's satisfied with it. Move forward, not to hold up these gentlemen any longer. And Mr. Kubitsky, are you there? John, are you there? Okay, John's the only one we didn't hear from tonight. Mr. Keller answered all our questions. The 25-year lease I can understand because they're making an investment. They're not going to give us a whole lot of money for the first 25 years. The investors are going to want their money, their return. As far as the insurance go, that would be up to the town council recommend if we have a bond or nothing to carry that through. I understand the concerns. I'd like to see it go before town council. Town council signs off, and I have no problem approving this. And going forward there to see where the permitting process brings us. It's like Mr. Cullen said, it does not even guarantee that the DES will even approve this because it is a unique situation. Alton, if we had foreseen back in the past the way that landfill went, and if we'd done things the proper way back when we had the landfill and not keeping the pits wide open, we wouldn't have half the problems we have up there today. Standing water was left in those pits. It was never pumped out. The landfill was never covered every night. And when you went up there after heavy rain like we had the other day, there'd be standing water 3 to 4 feet in those ditch lines where they were dumping stuff.
So there's a brook right underneath there. So, pipe in.
So at this point, I would recommend that we send this up to town council. He signs it off. If he signs off and no problems or issues, brings it back for us for our approval. You gentlemen agree?
I agree with that.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask for a vote. I'm just going to have a consensus of the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt? Mr. Wentworth, yes. So Mr. Keller will send your proposal up to our town council. If he signs off, Liz will be back in contact with you when we bring it before the selectmen at their next regular meeting. Does that sound fair to you?
Absolutely fair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the time, and hopefully I answered everybody's questions. And if there's follow-up questions, please feel free to pass them through Liz, and I'll be happy to answer anything I can.
I'm glad you answered it with due diligence. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right,
Mr. Simon,
have a
thank
great
you.
night. Bye-bye.
You too. Have a good evening.
Yep, thank you, have a good night.
Too, sir. Next, we're going to move on to capital improvements program, CIP presentation. If Jessica could join us, if she'd like. Unless she wants to stand way back there. And Frank, is Frank going to come up with you too?
He's actually, Frank's actually.
Well, it said that Jessica would be doing the presentation, and I both think that's why.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Frank, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, Select Board, or Board of Selectmen. I don't know which it is, but there it is.
I'll just interrupt you just for a minute, and Jessica will be in person. Is Amy Teravecki going to be joining us on the phone or not?
I'm not sure. She is not. I haven't.
Okay, so it's just going to be the two of you then. Okay. All right.
May I continue?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. The CIP committee members, for 2020 were Planning Board Representative Roger Sample, Board of Selectmen Representative Virgil McDonald, Budget Committee member Representative Pat O'Brien, and 2 citizen members, myself and Amy Terravecchia. And along with that, we were assisted by Jessica Call and Amelia Kate, who I must tell you, board did an excellent job in keeping us focused and with the appropriate information, and they should be commended for that work. The CIP committee was and has been charged for prioritizing and recommending capital improvements to the town department heads for the current and future needs of the town. This includes buildings, roads, bridges, other infrastructures like water and sewer, vehicles, equipment, and large renovations. The goal of the CIP committee has been to listen to the town department heads' needs and assessments and their urgency of those needs while trying to stabilize and maintain a consistent tax rate impact on the town's residents so as not to overburden them with a surprise or large tax increases. Over the last 4 years, this committee believes it has accomplished this goal to the best of its ability. We believe the CIP committee we believe that if the CIP committee continues each and every year going forward, the likelihood of unexpected tax increases will not occur. In front of you are the 2 spreadsheets that we presented to the planning board, and we have now submitted to both the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee. Those 2 spreadsheets is an easy 1-page read with a consolidated summary spreadsheet of all of the town's departments' capital costs, requests, and needs for the next 6 years, starting in 2021 and ending in 2026. That the committee recommends to this board. This report also shows the tax impact on the bottom of the town and the school capital projects and equipment based on an assessed value of $1,000 per 100. What we tried to accomplish, and I think we did a pretty decent job based on what the department's heads' needs were, we tried to keep it under a buck. And going forward, in 2023, 24, and 25, 23, 24, 25, and 26, you will see that it goes down precipitously, but that's provided nothing comes up. The second spreadsheet is a more detailed of the consolidated spreadsheet, and it's line item by line item. So if you wanted to know exactly what the fire department or the police department are looking for, and we did play with the numbers in each year to try to get that. It wasn't done without the knowledge of the department heads, and it wasn't done just promiscuously. It was done with some forethought, and there was not really much change. I will say that the department heads have worked diligently, and we only had, I believe, 4 departments that came to the CIP board, but they worked diligently to really look hard at what their needs were and tried to be very conservative in their needs. As a matter of fact, there was in a couple of instances, we had to actually insist that we put more money into their being a little bit too stingy upon themselves. And it would not be the best interest of the town. Having said all that, what this does not give us is clear visibility to any large building capital needs or large infrastructure needs. This is more capital improvements on equipment for the town's different departments and renovation, small, what I would classify as minor renovations, even within the school departments. But it does not address the space needs that of virtually every department is asking for, and we have not put that into the CIP agenda because the board feels that in order to really do this appropriately, we need to update the master plan to understand what the future needs are going to be based on what the citizens are looking for. So I caution the board, as my predecessor did last year, that this does not include any major infrastructure money into it, such as a combination fire station, police station, safety station, whatever you might want to call it. It does not include anything that might be considered sewer or water infrastructure. It's just what our needs are that we can look forward to and we actually have a vision to. I think the master plan committee will give us more foresight going forward based on whatever recommendations comes from the master plan committee going forward. That's it, gentlemen.
I would like to mention one thing that we discussed at CIP on the grounds and maintenance. They have all the buildings listed separately. We discussed on CIP that buying those funds, so it's the town buildings for the community center, the Pearson Road. Kelly, it'd be easier for Kelly to be able to do these projects instead of having all these different accounts and asking for money for all these different accounts. Put it into one for the town grounds and maintenance buildings.
Oh, that makes sense. I can understand where you're coming from that.
You know,
But it'd still be up to the Board of Selectmen how those funds are released, so I would have no problem with that. What I am looking forward, I don't understand why it takes a master plan to figure out a highway department, new building, or a fire department.
no,
I understand to a point where you're coming from, but these two departments are at crucial needs right now. They're not just sitting there waiting for what could be done in the future. We got a highway department, since I've been a kid in this town, I've lived here all my life. I've seen it been Band-Aid and Band-Aid and Band-Aid, to the point where there's just no room left.
the one bay garage down there.
And I've seen the highway department being added on where an old dump stood. When they dig too far deep into the sand pile, they end up coming out with metal or bed springs. I don't think it takes myself personally, I don't think it takes a master plan for a new highway building or a fire department. As far as the police department, that was redone in the late 80s and 90s, been remodeled again. I can't see the town going forward with a safety building. I still think those departments should all be kept separate. I've seen it in other towns where they built a safety building. You always got a police department, fire department that doesn't know who's in charge. If you get caught at one, or you have to stop it when you get broke down, somebody asks you, what are you doing here? Says, well, fire department said, it's all right, I'm loading the trailer. I'm in charge of this building. He's not. And that happened to me right over in Allenstown one night. And I wrote a letter to the selectmen, so I thought how poor their police chief was. Because the way he treated one of my employees, because the kid broke down in the parking lot, and I was just there to help him out. And I've seen it in other cities and other towns that do a safety building, departments just don't get along. I hope it doesn't take a master plan to start thinking for the highway agent or the fire chief to come forward and say, I need a new building.
But what we ought to do is set up an account and start putting a little bit of money aside and ask the people for the little.
Oh, I have no problem with that. I think what we need to do is get money to come up and see what type of building we need for each department. Because Mr. Roberts, he's sitting in the audience, I can even remember a few years ago, it was quite more than a few, I believe it was over 20 years ago. Wing tower fell down on a man and crushed his skull. Because that highway garage down there is so crowded. Since then, he's taken measures to make sure everything is safe and everything else in there. But at that point, everything was so crowded in there, his skull got crushed.
It's still
Could
private.
have lost a resident of the town of Alton that night.
Yeah.
That was 20 years ago. We still have not done anything about the highway department. The town has land. And I don't think, and I'm not saying anything bad about the committee, I think that's the Board of Selectmen's job, working with the planning department, of where we could come up with the department heads, and where we could put a highway building and a new fire station. Don't think it takes a master plan myself. Because if we build a fire department today, it doesn't mean it's gonna be the same fire department 20 years to 25 years.
No, but I think we.
I would like to see the selectmen. I like the report. It's detailed. It's nice. I just feel it doesn't take a master plan to build a fire station or highway department.
No, but I think it's up to the selectmen to get a warrant article put together to ask the people, start putting a little bit
Well,
of money aside.
it's the selectmen, the town administrator, and department heads to come up and figure out what it's gonna cost for something.
One of the things that, the CIP committee over the last couple of years, and, one of the things that it certainly, just happens to be an area that I'm familiar with is equipment. And I am pleased to see that the town is taking an approach that maybe ownership is not the way to go in terms of a lot of the equipment that we're acquiring today or we're using today on the basis of, and I'll give you a perfect example. In the commercial world, in 1960, and that's, much of this group was still around, okay, youngsters then, but in 1960, 95% of the equipment that was utilized by contractors was owned by the contractors. And it was companies like Perini and Palazzi and Audley bought their equipment, and what they had in their yards were these assets in this huge fleets, and you were measured by the amount of equipment that you had. As a good-sized company that could do the work. Over this last, since 1960, over this last 50 years, the equipment industry has gone from ownership to rental and leasing. Okay? And now, 92% of all equipment is leased or rented, and only 8%. Part of it was because the banks were pushing their customers, they wanted to see cash in their bank accounts, not assets. Now we even have a bigger issue with equipment. You can't fix it anymore. You used to be able to fix your own equipment. You used to be able to repair your own equipment.
Too complicated now.
Now you can't do it. And with Tier 4 engines coming with new equipment, it will be virtually impossible. Even the dealers can't take care of their own equipment because of the codes, because it's electronics over hydraulics. It's not mechanical hydraulics anymore. It's electronics over hydraulics. So if a sensor goes or a board goes, you can't run a piece of equipment. Ken Roberts has seen that, and the highway department is now leasing more and more than they've ever done before. We're seeing that more and more because if something breaks down and let's call it a CAT piece of equipment, it's leased from CAT. If they can't fix it, they have to replace it that day. So you can keep going. And you don't have storage issues if you don't need to have storage. You don't have to have a mechanic on call at a moment's notice to make sure, and you have no downtime. Now, sometimes those leases are a little bit more expensive than the ownership of it, but you can also unload it. So I'm happy to see that the town is looking at those types of things. Even though I've owned land in the town of London, in the town of Alton since 1982, I have not been a resident here, so I didn't pay much attention to the town politics of what's going on. But every time, it seemed that every time that there was a big warrant article for something like this, a fire station, a police station, it got shot down. One of my recommendations would be in the master plan, and the reason I think it needs to be in the master plan is because it's a collective community effort to put in the master plan. It's not what you think it needs to be or what you think it needs to be, but it's a community effort on where are we going and what are we going to do for the next 20 years. So if you can get people on board that this is in our master plan, whether it's a safety complex or it's a separate fire station, highway station or whatever, I would hope that we would also consider private developers building those for us and releasing them on a 20, 25, 30-year basis. And we have a fixed number and we don't bond it, okay? It could, I have no idea if it does or not. I don't know if developers would be interested in that, okay? But it could stabilize tax impacts. And that's all I'm saying. So the committee didn't come up with that because first, none of the heads asked us for it, okay, to look into it. But along with that, I think they're apprehensive about asking for something of magnitude, good-sized fire department. So those are the points that I would just try to make in terms of, I think it's critical that we do have a master plan, okay, because it's not just buildings.
I understand that. I'm not saying to kill a master plan.
Yeah.
Maybe you took that the wrong way. I'm just saying what I said. I guess this is where we'll agree to disagree, because I would hope the town would never lease a building.
Sorry.
I would hope the town would never lease a building.
Okay.
Okay, but this is where we'll agree to disagree. I didn't say to kill a master plan. Their master plan is needed. But I still think the selectmen have a fiduciary responsibility to look at antiquated situations, which a fire department is antiquated, the building. The highway department is antiquated. It's outgrown itself. Police department has been upgraded 2 times since it was built by Mr. Wheeler when he was here. Mr. Wheeler sat and wired it. I remember it. It's been updated twice now. Fire department, can't tell you how many times that's been updated since I've been a kid in this town. And we got one West Alton station, which I'm looking in improvements here. There's really nothing there for it. But I guess that's where me and you will agree to disagree. That'd be the best part.
We can agree to disagree and go through the whole thing. I'm just saying it's another option, okay? Something that needs to be taken a look at, okay? But nobody thought leasing was the way to go 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And now it's the way it.
For heavy equipment, yes.
Yes, okay.
For heavy equipment, not for regular trucks and cars, though.
Don't kid yourself.
Well, in my business, sir, it is not the way to go. It costs me more money than what it's worth. That I've already looked into several times over.
I know, and you never know how it's going to happen.
Maybe in 10 years down the road, maybe. But right now, no.
Not today. No. Not today. Anyways, so that's what we came up with. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have no more. It's up to you, gentlemen. Mr. Holt.
I'd just like to say one thing, Reuben. I agree. I'm not a master plan fan. I agreed. I voted to approve it last year. And a master plan is great as long as it's followed to some degree. I see a lot of towns develop master plans, and it sits over there on a shelf and does absolutely nothing. But I believe in a master plan. If it's done right, and I believe these buildings that you suggested should be in our master plan. And like you stated earlier, it becomes somewhat easier to sell to the townspeople. Because it's known, it's a known fact, it's planned. And that's what the whole thing is, a plan. We can start working on it, the Board of Selectmen, I have no problem. They are dire needed, those two buildings. The police has been pretty well taken care of, but the highway department and the fire department, in need of replacement.
And the CIP committee, whoever that's gonna be on next year and the year after that. And then if those are the things that are needed, can start thinking about how do we fund those? And what's the best approach? And should we be reserving to those buildings? Yeah. Right now, we're not.
That's true.
I will also make one other comment, that this board is, and what Ken Roberts has done with $1 million of money for the roads that he's put in, okay, over the last couple of years, has been commendable. A road today, in state and town standards, costs about $1.1 million per done properly. He's doing 3, 4, 5 miles for $1 million. I gotta tell you, absolutely commendable. Now, are they perfect? No, but boy, I'll tell you, they're
Not
damn
bad.
good. They're
Very well.
damn good. And I would recommend that we continue to push that $1 million a year, because this town's getting the benefit of 3, 4, and 5 miles, and we got a lot of roads in this town.
Yep.
We got a lot of territory that we're covering. So, I hope that will continue.
I also agree with the master plan. I think it is important to have direction for the town, and where the town, people that are moving in, people that have been residents for years, have an idea as to where we're going in the future for the next 10, 20 years. And I think it is important, doing something like this is working good with the figuring out how we can achieve our goals. Certain things need to be in the master plan. I don't 100% agree that we need to put buildings in it, but I do think that equipment and whether or not the direction of where we're going with the town for how we grow is very important, and having a plan as to what we accept and we don't accept. So I think what you've done here is a great job, and I think that the buildings don't necessarily have to be in this either. But I think where this direction is going is a good direction.
Well, one of our charges, if you look at the charges, is any improvement over $20,000, and these buildings are over $20,000. So it would behoove ourselves to look at it, and even if we start allocating for the fire department and the highway department, at least there's knowledge to the citizens that there's going to be something that's going to go on in the next, over the years, and we're trying to get our arms around what that cost is going to be.
Right.
You know, but I mean, to do the appropriate central fire station on land owned by the town, you know, would be in the millions and millions of dollars, just as it probably will have that kind of cost with the highway department if we do it appropriately for the right future, okay? The fire department will be much more expensive than I think the highway department. But do we bond it? How do we do it? Do we reserve for it? you know? They have those needs now. So awful difficult to reserve for it. It means we'd have to ante up millions of dollars if we weren't gonna bond it. So I don't know what the answer is. That's your job, okay, not mine, okay? My job is to try to stabilize the tax. My job with my committee is to stabilize the tax. We stabilized it, and I'll tell you, I think we're in the best shape we've been in for a long time, especially.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay. And the fire department in terms of what we're anticipating the future needs are for equipment, not for the building itself.
Right.
Hey, gentlemen, any other questions?
I'd just like to thank Jessica and Amelia again they did a tremendous job on being able to twist this thing around and.
Well, it's good. I'm glad to hear that. I really am.
Along with that, we have been,
I hope that can move forward even towards the other side of the department.
Jessica has been contacted by a couple of other boards, a couple of other towns in utilizing her spreadsheet, okay? Because it's so comprehensive and so easy to read.
It made it so easy.
Even Paul can read it, okay? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Thanks, Frank.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Lucky to have them.
Okay, gentlemen, I need a motion to approve the CIP 2021 to 2026 program.
Motion, we approve the CIP 2021 to 2026.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. McDonald to approve the capital improvement program 2021 through 2026, second by Mr. Holt. Any further discussion? And the reason I'm asking for you to vote on this tonight so they can get busy on the warrant articles, that's why. There's no further discussion. I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is affirmative. Carry on, guys. Good luck.
Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you for all your time. Jessica, thank you. Moving on to the police department, truck lease purchase. Mr. Heath, Chief Heath, would you please join us?
Truck lease.
Yeah, but that's through the revolving fund.
Oh, I thought you didn't like those.
But he owns it at the end of the lease. He doesn't have to turn it back in.
Lease purchase.
Wait a minute. It's a lease purchase. The only reason he does it, he doesn't have to come up with full funds right at the beginning. Some of us are still old school where we know our debt and we pay for it. We don't have to worry extending it out too far, sir.
Okay, Chief.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
Lost Frank.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we start, I'll have to excuse myself as the firm that's mentioned here I work for.
Okay? Thank you, sir. Before you have the police chief's recommendation to purchase a new 2021 Ford F-250 to replace the Humvee that we allowed him to sell, the police department sell. He's asking for that to come out of his revolving fund and also to have the selectmen support putting this $25,000 from the Humvee back into the revolving fund by having a warrant article written up this year. Before you, you have the request. He gave you 5 proposals. Police Ford, the Rochester Ford is his best option, or the department's best option, not his. So at this point, I'll open it up to you for 3 other gentlemen to ask any questions of the chief.
Come standard with the snowplow package and the power equipment.
Normally, most trucks now, the F-250 4x4s all come through with a plow prep package, not with a plow, but the prep package has the heavy-duty transmission lines, springs, has the protection plate underneath the transmission, it has the extra heavy-duty front end.
One at Rochester Ford that you're suggesting is going to be on one's order, that they don't have in stock, correct?
Right. We found that trying to buy anything off the lot is almost $10,000 more expensive, because we can't take advantage of the full municipal rebates that we can when we order. So I did give you a couple options.
Yeah.
Trucks on the lot,
Right.
and there was nothing comparable.
Nothing comparable with that. That's pretty good.
And that is a crew cab, full crew cab, so we do have that extra space in the back.
Other than that, it's a pretty basic model.
It is, it's a work truck model.
Yep.
Yeah, work truck, fits with the heavy duty needs of, you know, to haul with it and everything else, but,
F-250 crew cab.
Primarily, this is for your trailer, to haul your capacity, your trailer and your boat,
yes.
when you need to have it for emergency management and things.
Not gonna be using it as a cruiser, or are we?
We're gonna be, the, police detective will be using it. That was the purpose of really being able to have a vehicle that we could utilize more and not sit. It's regular, sitting, it became the worst thing for it.
Yeah, that's the worst
Breaking
thing
down,
to do with it.
starting, it was, we were having a lot of mechanical problems because of all the sitting that it did. You know, with this one, putting the detective in it, it's not on patrol. We're not gonna do, you know, work the regular patrol shifts or traffic enforcement with the pickup truck. But that also gives him the flexibility to do a little bit of more work, get, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Black Chargers are pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, they-
State police,
Yeah,
everything
you can
else.
spot them pretty quick.
Yeah, it's as common as a Crown Vic now.
Chief, the equipment you removed from the Humvee, is that what you're gonna use?
Yes.
Everything that, so there's nothing else that's gonna have to be really purchased or anything? You'll be able to put all that
There may be a
equipment?
couple of, factory, specific components, like the wig wags and headlights, stuff like that. Those are, they're activated from the factory and stuff like that. But everything else, the big purchase items, light controllers, siren boxes, siren speakers, the Motorola radio, which is almost $5,000. All of that stuff that we had originally purchased through our outfitting grant is all safely packed away at the station right now. That was all taken out and is going to be repurposed into the big one.
Will it be equipped with a computer as well?
No.
You know, 6-year lease that you're requesting,
Yes.
what does that entail? Oil changes, everything?
No, the lease doesn't include service, but it is under warranty for that.
On the warranty for that period. So I guess what I'm asking is, why bother do the lease? If I'm not mistaken, Laura, you gave us the police detail balance of 105,677. Is that is that correct, what I'm looking at today?
Right after what I was just thinking.
One that was on my desk tonight, September 2020, 105,777.
105,899.
Right. Yeah, there's money that's due to come out of that, though. That was the issue is that, so our lease payment for our regular fleet
Yep.
doesn't come out until December.
Okay, how much is that?
41,000.
Okay. And do you anticipate any more private detail the next 2 months?
It'll be limited, very limited, because of the weather. It's starting to turn now.
Oh, the only reason I'm saying that is on your request, it's 32,000 on the lease purchase. I believe it's $4,000 in interest, which you have to pay, which is minimal on 32,000, as far as I'm concerned. But if you're asking the selectmen to recommend putting $25,000 back into your revolving account and support it, I'd request that you pay for the truck up front, 100% full.
Pay it outright and buy it.
Okay.
At least that's what I would
My only
recommend.
concern is if the warrant article doesn't go out.
Well,
And because if it doesn't, then we're gonna end up.
all right, let me ask this. How much money was used on, the taxpayer money was used on Humvee to redo or to maintain it after we got it from the federal government? Do you know?
No, we utilized what we did. I mean, I can tell you as far as maintaining one.
I know right up front, you couldn't tell me.
It's very minimal, but the outfitting that we did was all part of EMPG.
Okay.
But, so there was the trailer was involved in that. There was some equipment involved in, but to pick out, so that our match to that was half a soft match, which was time and effort that went into it, half of it was a hard match. So there was probably,
We put a roof and stuff on that, didn't we?
right, and that was in conjunction with a grant, with everything that came out of that. So I would say it would be probably somewhere in the 5 to 8 range, 5 to 8,000.
I have no problem with the truck. I think the police department should have a truck. I think the little cars, being 6'9", I couldn't imagine myself getting one of those cruisers or being put in the back of a cruiser, okay? I just think some of the town roads in the wintertime, that could be more useful than the cars. I was a little disappointed when I saw you went to all cars, that's all. I know they go just as well, and you gave me the story on
All-wheel
everything.
drive really makes a
They're
difference.
pretty good.
Yeah, but
They do well.
But some of us are still old-fashioned, you know?
You had to put that trailer on one of them cars and go, that
It
wouldn't.
is, even the speed trailers are,
I have no problem with the vehicle being paid through the revolving fund. I'm just thinking about leaving $4,000 in your revolving fund over the 6 years versus that. But I understand your concerns. You got payments coming out of it, being lowered down to,
and there is no prepayment penalty. So if the warrant article goes through, we could pay it off, I could bring it back to the board and for a decision to pay it off and save the interest over
well, I'll hold you to word on that one. I'll take that as a consideration. I'd go along with approving this tonight with you stating that.
Okay.
I back it.
And I do have a question there.
Okay.
I won't quite read it the way she put it.
Come on.
Chief needs to explain what happened with the sale of the Humvee and how it will be handled through the dealership. The Humvee, though, we sold directly to an individual, correct?
Can you
That's
tell
what-
them what happened? Tell them what happened with the guy in New York that won the bid and,
Well, no, we're not, he was able to register, nothing's going through the dealership. The money is, what happened is we sold the Humvee and the money, because it was an unanticipated revenue, DRA and the town attorney says that it has to go back to revolving.
General fund, right.
Instead of the police revolving fund. There was a concern at the beginning when the guy purchased the vehicle, paid us the money, the money in his hand, went back home. He had trouble registering it because it has a military title
Right.
instead of a conventional title. So the thought is that if we ran it through the dealership as a trade-in allowance, they would do an application for title. And then that way it would actually fix everything as far as the transaction goes and make it a title. But with a copy of our current registration, he was able to get it through, is it New Jersey or New York? I think it's New York, he was talking. New York's registration, so he's able to do it. So with that, this is just a straight up vehicle lease for us. The only way that we can get the $25,000 back into the revolving fund to pay for it is with a warrant article.
okay, I wasn't aware that the problem had been solved,
I'm
so,
sorry.
thank you.
I'm sorry for that miscommunication.
Didn't even know there was a problem until right about now.
No, it wasn't, that was a question I originally posed to the town administrator and the town attorney. And we had left it, I was going to get, confirmation from the dealership, and a letter from the dealership. And in the midst of all of that, the problem had gotten resolved, and I apologize and communicate that.
There you go.
Sorry.
Well, she put he needs to
Thank
explain.
you.
I didn't quite like the he. I just like.
No, I didn't mean it that way.
Well, I know you
Instead of
didn't.
writing out Chief
Just the way it read
Brian
into
needs
it.
to speak.
Gentlemen, if there's no further question for Mr. Heath or Chief, I would entertain a motion to approve the chief to go out and purchase from Rochester Ford an F-250 2021 Crew XL base,
So moved.
Or, you want this on that?
$32,377.
So moved.
Made to allow the chief to go out and purchase an F-250 2021 Crew XL base for $32,377 from Rochester Ford. Second by Mr. Rochelle. Any further discussion? From the revolving fund, we'll do the motion on the warrant article after.
Reading my mind tonight.
I must be. I'll poll the board. Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Wentworth? Yes. Vote is in the affirmative, Chief. You do have the right to go out and purchase that. And gentlemen, I need a motion to allow a warrant article to ask the taxpayers of the community to pull out of the general fund $25,000, put back in the police department's revolving fund of $25,000 from the sale of the Humvee.
Make a motion that we have Liz write us up a warrant article to have the 25,000 pulled out of general fund and put into the police revolving fund from the sale of Humvee.
Second.
Maybe Mr. McDonald to approve the warrant article, have Liz make a warrant article to ask taxpayers to pull $25,000 out of the general fund to put back in revolving fund for the police department from the sale of the Humvee. Second by Mr. Rochelle. Any other discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. Whitman?
Yeah.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Yes, that's perfect. There you go, Chief.
Thank you.
You too. Have a good night.
All right, gentlemen, moving on to old business. Being none, I'll move on to Selectmen's reports. Mr. Holt. Mr. Rochelle.
I just want to point out, and a lot of people already probably know, but on Tuesday, October 27th, the Highway Department extended the boat ramp in the bay, which was 25 feet. Now it extends out to 33 feet measured from the stone wall out. I was there present and was able to assist and help. They did a marvelous job bringing in the stone and reaching out with the excavator. The water was low enough to reach out, and 4 of us got in the water and was able to spread the stone and actually install the concrete panels.
They didn't need the badge.
Did not need the barge. Ken had his equipment down there the day before with all the stone in bags with the excavator, was able to walk the excavator down without getting into the water. We got into the water, the stone was brought out with the excavator, bags were cut open and the stone was dropped. We put a shield all the way around a blanket to protect. And we put all that in, spread the stone, and put in the panels. Hopefully, it isn't perfect, but it's going to make it.
No, but I think it's going to be a lot better.
It's going to make it a lot better. It might vary an inch to a half inch on 18 feet, and each panel is 30 inches wide. So it really came out good. I think did a good job, Ken.
I thank Mr. Rochelle for volunteering Jeff in the water.
I thank you guys for volunteering too. It was a great job by all of you, thank you, and it was too bad it took so long to get the permit so we could get it done.
But it was chilly.
They can't work a little faster because of those issues, but that's okay, that's conquered.
I think it's going to make a big difference with boats getting stuck and tearing up their trailers. So
That's what was happening.
Yeah.
Once they come all the way out, once those wheels drop, there's no way of getting them back out without assistance on and out. So it should make a big difference.
Thank you all. Thank you. Mr. Whitman.
I have nothing.
Mr. McDonald. Okay, the budget committee did meet again last week. Hooray, we had another quorum, so it was nice. They did approve some of the budgets. I think, as I spoke to the chief a couple of weeks before, I think this has probably been his easiest year to get a budget through without too many questions. Unfortunately, with the budget committee, no, his budget was approved.
Yeah, but we ain't done it. We might go back in.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we're done. But anyways, that's up to you guys. But all I'm saying is, with where they're getting to meet so late and trying to get quorums, they're gonna go through the budget if they're gonna ask the questions, but if they feel they're adequate and suffice, they will not be bringing them back in. They are trying to approve it and go forward. So I just wanted to let you know that. We did meet, we had a second meeting in a row with a quorum, which was good. And that's about all I had, because I already said everything else. And town administrators report then at this time.
I have 5 items for open session, and the first one is the 2020 tax rate. And you'll see at your seat that you have 2 charts, 2 Excel charts. The one that is landscape is just information on going back over the years. You'll see the year column on the left-hand side. But the one that you have to make a decision about tonight is the portrait type document. So we were notified by the DRA on Friday that the tax rate is ready to be set. So when you look at this document here, you'll see the tax rate that they are proposing is $13.94, and if you do nothing to, then that's the total tax rate of town, school, county, et cetera, et cetera. You'll see different lines across. So if you do nothing, it stays at $13.94, and the town portion is $4.24. However, we always do need to add some overlay into it. Overlay is taken out of the fund balance, and that is used for different refunds and abatements through the assessing department. And the assessing department is recommending $27,000 this year, so that has to be done. So I've added that to the column to each amount as you go down the list. The next column is if you want to take some money out of the fund balance to put it towards lowering the town portion of the tax rate. And I did it in chunks like I did last year and the year before, $50,000 chunks, and then what the resulting new total tax rate would be in the town portion of the tax rate. And then down at the very bottom of the sheet, you'll see all of the current fund balance information. DRA recommends the 17%. You have to have between 5% and 17%. We're at 10%.
Do that after we get done.
So, but I'm going to pull Laura into the loop here because last year, Virgil, you made a motion which passed to take $500,000 out of fund balance and put it towards the tax rate. And I think everybody needs to kind of rethink this annual tax rate setting at the end of October, early November, and then your warrant articles in March.
Well, how can we?
But please let me finish. Because, and Laura, maybe you can explain it better than I can, but when you take money out of the fund balance to lower the tax rate, you're lowering the town portion of the tax rate, which does affect the total tax rate, but you're subtracting that amount from the operating budget, which means the following year, you're going to have a boomerang effect. So that tax rate's going to go back up to cover that $500,000 as an example, and then some more depending on what is presented. The new, there's some different ways that a lot of municipalities around the state are starting to do, and as Ruben mentioned last week, and I think it was mentioned at one other meeting, the town of Guilford, this year, they built up their fund balance to a very healthy fund balance. And as you know, you're supposed to, keep a healthy fund balance because of an emergency or what have you. And when you do get up to a healthy amount, in order not to affect the tax rate, is, as Guilford did in March, every warrant article that they had, except the operating budget, they used money from the fund balance so that it did not affect the tax rate. You always want to leave your operating budget alone and maybe try to work towards paying some of these warrant articles out of the fund balance once that fund balance gets back up. Because if you keep taking it out on this sheet and you apply it to lower the tax rate, you are lowering it, but you're only lowering the warrant article for your operating budget. So all the others still count towards increasing the tax rate. They start at 0 every year and they build it up. That's how they formulate the tax rate. They look at revenues, expenditures, and appropriations and stuff. So it's something that some serious thinking really needs to be done so that in the future, once the fund balance has been increased to a more healthier level and we can maintain it at a healthier level, and hopefully we can also continue with the warrant articles but have the fund balance money pay for those so that they will not affect the tax rate except for the operating budget. Laura, is there anything that you would like to add to this?
No. My question to you is, where were we down this year? We must have been down in revenues because the town budget and warrants, all the things got approved last year was pretty much where it was the year before. And we'd come in with a lower tax rate the year before, and then the gentleman added another $500,000 to lower it even lower.
So you have to remember you were on a default budget one year. So that messes up everything. So if you look at last year, you're going up $1.44 this year, and 30 cents of that is from last year. So when you take the 500,000, like you did, that's only 1 year.
And that's
so unless
30
Wait a minute, one at a time, one at a
That's the
time.
30 cents.
Let it talk to me yet.
So unless you reduce your operating budget, your appropriations, 500,000, you have to raise that the next year. That's why it's only 1 year's worth. Does that make sense?
No, because it's in our fund balance. We should be able to use that fund balance.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, like, if you need $10 million and you take your money and you pay off 500,000
We're
of
not
it.
borrowing the money, we're taking it, that's taxpayers' money that's in the account.
Right, I know, but for 1 year, you lowered what you needed to spend by $500,000. But you don't have that $500,000 every year to not have it
Okay.
anymore needed,
That, now I know what she's trying to say, yes.
right?
I know what
So
you're trying
that's why it's going up. So if you wouldn't have done that, it wouldn't be $1.44. It would be 28 cents less. Unless you reduce your appropriation amount by $500,000.
And we need to go back into the budget, because we don't even know what our bottom line is yet on the budget, and you want us to set a tax rate. We haven't got a bottom line on that
But
budget.
it doesn't go on this one. It doesn't go on this one. This is the money that we've already spent this year.
So this tax rate that's being set is for 2020. It's always set at the end of the year. That's one thing I need to point out. Another thing is remember, it's 3 cents on the tax rate for every $50,000, roughly.
Yep, and that
That's for
fund
the-
balance, the
that's for-
state has been bitching about that, and they keep saying you need more money in it, you need more money in it.
Yeah.
We've always kept to it. We got the town wiped out by the hurricane, the tornadoes. We didn't even get to $1 million out of it.
So Laura and I are not saying not to use the fund balance to lower the tax. We're not saying that. We think the fund balance should be used, but not for the operating budget. It should be used for individual warrant articles.
And then we don't pay it back?
You have surplus at the end of the year, and it gradually builds and builds over the years. It's a different method that will not do the spike and dip of the tax rate. If you leave the operating budget alone, that warrant article alone, and you don't apply the money to the tax rate at tax rate setting time. Instead, you use the fund balance, if you have enough, towards certain warrant articles. And you remember, this past March, there were 2 or 3 warrant articles, like one of them, I think, was the lift out there, $50,000, said funds to come out of the fund balance. This will not affect taxes at all. It's not counted towards the tax rate.
Well, if we're paying those, and we're taking it out of fund balance, what's the difference where I apply that money if I'm taking it out of that account?
Because the following year, you don't have that $500,000 to help offset the tax rate again. What's happening is you have to make up that $500,000 you didn't have before. Even though we stayed at basically a level funded budget last year, you used $500,000 to offset the tax rate this year. Now, all of a sudden, the tax rate's due. You don't have that $500,000 unless you go in and make a motion tonight to use $500,000 again, then they'll bring it back down. But again, the same thing's gonna happen next year. It's gonna jump it back up to $13.95 again next year if we stay around level funded.
Well, then we gotta default the budget.
But if you want to use, if you're hell-bent on spending $500,000
I was going
each
for
year, then don't use it on setting the tax rate. Use it instead
on your
in
capital
March on
improvements.
the warrant articles to have paid for some of these warrant articles out of the fund balance.
I know.
That's where you want to do it.
I
And
know.
that will not affect this.
I know if I'm going to $13.94, my vote's for default in the budget. I'll tell you that right now.
Wait a minute, now let me
I'll tell you.
let me go with you this way. Go back to 2018. You had a tax rate of 14.33.
Yeah.
Remember last year when the tax rate came in, it went down to $13.95. I think it was even a little less than that last year when it first.
2019 was $12.51.
Yeah, we
Done.
thought.
It's all set.
$12.51, and then he
Then
made.
why do I have $12.79?
500.
$12.79.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, oh yeah, over on the right-hand column, yeah.
Way over the new rate.
$12.79 to $12.51.
So it went down originally last
We
year.
fought to get it down.
Well, we fought to get it down, and then you reduced it more by adding another $500,000. Okay, so it went down, originally, it had gone down to 13 something. Then you took the 500,000, lowered it even further. I think it took almost another buck off it. And we dropped it even lower. Now you don't have the 500,000, so now it's shooting back up to $13 and some odd cents but a little more than where we were last year originally when DRA set the tax rate. if I'm not mistaken. It was 13, I want to say 1344, 1345, the initial tax rate when it was set a year ago by DRA.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
your 19 rate, it was the default. Because instead of 10 million, you only had like an $8 million budget.
Yep.
So that's why there's a huge difference. So I would have to agree, though. I mean, if you want to save the town funds, instead of leasing these big, you know, trucks for the highway and all that, you're better off to pay off those leases with your fund balance and save yourself all that interest. I mean, every little bit, and instead of fluctuating the tax rate every year.
So if you want to keep that low tax rate, you're going to have to throw another $500,000. Just remember, next year, you're going to be back in the same boat, but you might not have
Total fund
2.6.
Right now,
2.8?
2.798, yep.
It's at the bottom of your sheet, 10%.
Almost 2.8, about where we were last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Let's put the 2 on and keep the 798 in there. And put the 2 million on the budget.
So next year, your 1395 will be like 15.
Yeah.
$15.
No?
Unless you
Chairman?
cut 2 million.
Mr. Holt,
I think one thing we should do, we've been talking about this for 2 years, we should determine what we want to keep for a minimum fund balance. You know, the state says 17% recommended.
And they keep going up, Bob.
Well, that could be. And what, you said, Liz, we're at 10% now?
we're at 10.5.
The DRA recommends that you keep between 5% and 17%, but they prefer the 17%. You want to have, you know, healthy. But right now, we're at 10%. It's right on the bottom of the form, yeah.
And my only thought, not going to 17%, no, I know she'd like to see us go there. I'm tired of the state considering it a rich community. And we're having to pay more in state educational funds, and it could be getting worse.
Yeah.
It's not gonna get any easier for the town. So I don't know if I'd go with the full 17%. I might go 12 to 13 eventually, but,
But we've always been like 2.4 in that account.
Yeah,
Never, ever had to use it all in an
point
emergency.
something.
Never, ever have we've never gone over the $1 million mark on an emergency.
no, but you gotta remember, down the road, if you do bond, by having this, the fund balance up to a certain point, help us with our bond ratings too.
And you can never plan for an emergency.
I've been hearing that for 20 years.
No, well,
Well, that was proven this year.
Yep, that's correct.
so on this, sheet, I recommend the second line down, the $27,000 for overlay. We've already added that in. And just, I mean, it's up to you, but if you want to use some money out of fund balance towards reducing the tax rate, use it towards some of these other warrant articles that are going to be coming forward. That's the best way to do it.
That makes sense.
It's essentially doing the same thing, Virgil. It's just a different way of.
I know, but we should be able to spend the money that the people put in the bank, the townspeople, and put it on, whether it's our budget or this. If you're putting it to buy stuff, you don't have to pay it back. But if you're using it to reduce your budget, you gotta pay it back.
Well,
That don't make sense to me.
well, the only reason I'll go to you at this point where it doesn't make sense to you. The warrant articles are spread over a period of time. If the warrant articles do not go into the tax rate, okay, say if we just pay for, we'll just use a ladder truck, for example, $1 million. Okay? If we pay for that right out of the general fund and people approved it on a warrant account, doesn't affect our operating budget. That $500,000, that affected our operating budget. So now this year, we don't have that $500,000 unless we put it back in there again. So there's a big difference in that because the following year, the RA is going to set the tax rate based on 2021 expenditures. This was based on 2020 expenditures.
You're saying we don't have the 500,000. It's in our savings account now.
Not anymore. We already spent it.
You would have to use it every year. I see what he's saying. He's saying use the 500,000 every year.
We got 2.7 in that savings account. Now they're telling us we can't use that.
No, they're not saying you can't, but that's why our tax rate jumped another $1 this year, because that 500 is not there.
But you're saying we gotta pay it back in there when it is there, because we were at 2.5 last year. When I-
2.5, you took the 500 out.
That's right, now we're at 2.7.
I don't think we went down to quite 2.0 last year. I think it was a little more than 2.5. I think it was around 2.7. Took the 500 out and went to 2.2. All she's saying is you have to put 500,000 towards that every year if you want to keep that tax rate lower.
When you do the calculation
If you
of
vote,
building up to the tax rate, this is how DRA does
if
it.
you pay a warrant article off, or if the people voted in, your taxes go up. If I
Right.
pay the budget off, they don't have to come up with that tax money. Why do they have to come up with the following year to pay it back? When we
They're
can
not
use it
paying,
for something else?
they're not paying it back. They're paying it to keep the tax rate down again the following year.
You gotta keep doing it.
It doesn't,
It's like putting a
but I
down
can
payment
use it
down
for,
every year on a new
if the
vehicle.
warrant article passes, then you're coming up with $100,000 out of taxation. Right?
Well, if you do it the regular way, if you do it out of fund balance, it's not gonna raise the taxes.
And you don't have to pay it back. If I pay,
Right.
all right,
Right.
if I pay into the budget, then you don't have to come up with it for your taxes, but I have to pay it
No.
back.
Not
You
unless
do.
you do a lease purchase. If you do a lease purchase, then you'd have to do the same thing next year.
Right.
But if you pay it off in some. But if you pay it off in whole, it never hits the tax roll. The budget still hits the tax roll every year.
That's a given. That's where.
The
you
warrant
gotta-
article won't hit the tax roll because it would be self-funded, where the town budget is not self-funded, it's funded by the taxes. Where the warrant article would be funded by your savings account, because you already have the money there. You wouldn't have to replace that next year, because you wouldn't be buying that same truck next year, or you wouldn't be buying the assessing programs or something like that, that was over $20,000. Yeah, it wouldn't even show up on the tax roll because it's already been bought and paid for. You had the money sitting there. Right now, the 500,000 sitting there, you're gonna change the tax rate. But come next year, after 2021's budget is done, and they say if the budget's up 3%, 4%, so you're gonna add that in in this November next year for your new tax rate, that's gonna go back up because that 500,000 isn't there yet. So if you wanna lower it, you'll have to put the 500,000 again against it.
And it's gonna take a few years for you to probably see some really good results from this. Because the more money that in the fund balance, the more warrant articles each year you could essentially pay for. It's something to think about.
I'm gonna reach out just here.
That's a dangerous way of doing it.
I'm gonna reach out here just one real quick, if you folks don't mind. I'm gonna ask Mr. Roberts a question. Mr. Roberts, that new truck coming up this spring, if approved at town meeting, how much was that gonna be roughly estimated?
$172,000.
All right, so let's just say tonight you decide, all right, we won't touch the fund balance, or if you want to touch fund balance, you say 100,000. Let's just say warrant article for that truck, for that department, be funded solely by the fund balance, $167,000. DRA won't even look at that as part of the tax rate for next year because it's already been bought and paid for. Where the 500,000, when we used it to offset the tax rate from 2019, now they're setting the tax rate for 2020. We don't have that $500,000 already there for them to use.
It has to be raised and
So it
appropriated.
has to be raised and appropriated. Now, you can turn around and say, all right, I want to do 500,000 again to lower it, but we're just going to keep doing that every year.
You're also saying I can't use the money in my savings account without being screwed by DRA.
You're not going to be screwed by DRA.
Of course I am. Because I'm taking 500,000 out of my savings account
Yeah.
to pay for a budget. Now they want me
To
to
partially pay. To
Now they
partially
want
pay.
me to pay back my savings
No,
account.
they're not saying pay it back. They're not
If I
saying
go
that.
buy trucks and pay everybody else's off, that takes the vote away from a lot of the people.
The $500,000 you used last year was to offset the 2019 tax rate. That's all it was. Now we're on the,
Pay the budget down.
no, to lower the tax rate $1 to,
Mhm.
as you said, it's the people's money, which it is. That was for 2019 tax rate, not for 2020 budget. Now we're setting a tax rate for what we spent in 2020. You don't have that 500,000. You got to put another 500 in if you want to reduce it. You only reduced last year's tax rate, not this year's tax rate by the 500.
So we ought to put the 798 in.
Is that your motion? Go ahead, sir.
Make a motion, we put the 798,000 towards tax rate.
Motion by Virgil McDonald to put $798,000 against the tax rate for 2020. Do I have a second? No second. Motion fails. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I'll speak at once.
Liz, what was your recommendation?
On this, portrait size, document, second line down, which you don't have to make a motion to put the $27,000 into the overlay. That's just, it has to be done. So it's just, approve that second line of 27,000 overlay and 0 from fund balance. And then later, when the warrant articles are brought before you, you can decide at that time if you want to use some money out of the fund balance to fund those, some of the warrant articles.
You're saying not to use any of the fund balance.
Well,
You're saying second line down would be 2020 was 1394. New tax rate would be 1395, correct?
yeah, for every $50,000 that's applied, the overall tax rate decreases by 3 cents, and the town portion is actually where it's decreased, which affects the overall, the full tax rate, as you can see on that chart.
Even if you use the, just say, Virgil, even if you use the $500,000 with the overlay of $7,000 more this year, you'd only be reducing it down to 1367, 1395, if I'm reading this right. So you'd only be reducing it 30 cents, nowhere near what we did reduce it last year for 500,000.
So keep in mind too, as you look at this landscape shaped document, the county tax decreased by a penny. The local education tax increased from $5.95 up to $6.41. And the state education tax decreased from $2.07 to $2.02. Town portion increased from $3.49 up to $4.25.
It was 843 versus 757 last year in the school, if I'm reading that right.
What are you asking?
I think last year it was 797, right? 797 versus 843 on the school and state local education. So the state,
$5.95 up to $6.41.
yeah, and then 207 versus 202.
Yep. So even though the town portion has increased once this tax rate setting is done, next year at this time, if you use money from the fund balance towards some of the warrant articles, that's going to help. That's going to help.
That'll help lower the town rate.
Or keep it where it is.
Yeah, it'll help.
But you got to remember, on 100,000 then, which we basically, that's basically what our health insurance has gone up to now until we decide to talk about it. I mean, that's going to add 30 cents to the tax rate next year.
Another 30 cents on top of the 40.
I can use this theory of this. If only 50,000 reduces by 3 cents, I can do it the opposite way when I see the budget going up $100,000 too, what it will add to the tax rate. The ballpark, yeah.
Next year's a revalue, I believe, right? We'll have a new valuation as well, so that'll change your numbers a little bit, but.
Now, what you could do actually is, next year at this time, the reval money, the 80,000, you could, make a motion at this time next year to put 80,000 out of fund balance towards lowering the tax rate, right?
Now, wait a minute. You want to take it out, you just said no.
Because that rebound money is a one-time hit next year.
So yes, if you have like a one-time expenditure that's gonna go into your general fund, increase it that much, to keep your tax rate even, you would fund that. So then it pays for itself. But otherwise, you're going down, and then you gotta come back up. So like, if you're going up with your budget, you wanna keep it steady, then you could fund whatever you're going up in your budget for the expenditure.
And the tax rate is based on.
I think next Monday, we're going to be going back into the budgets.
And the tax rate is based on all of the money warrant articles added together. So the fewer that you have of those, every little bit will help to not impact the tax rate.
Like I said, if we really, all departments, mostly all came in where we asked them to this year. You see a 3% increase. But you won't see the spike of that $500,000 because we might not use it this year. That's why last year, when I sat here with Sydney, I wasn't agreeable to lowering it, using that much, because I figured that's gonna hit us somewhere, and it's gonna hit us again. We're gonna jump over $1 again this year. So one year, we look like heroes to the taxpayers because we reduced it by over $1.
Wait a minute.
Now we're going back up.
The money we used only increased to 30 cents.
Money we used increased, no, we went down last year.
I know, but the money we used that they want us to pay back now only increased the tax rate 30 cents, and you've got $1 something there.
Right, but there was the default budget in 2019, and that was significant.
Hopefully be another one this year.
That was like an $8,000 appropriation compared to your normal $10,000. So you're going from
$8
that
million to $10 million.
10 million, sorry. So you're going up like $2 million just because you were at a default 1 year.
Well, nobody likes to see a 10% increase in the budget, and that's basically what you're looking at, is 10% increase. Because the people on the outside won't understand it as we're talking about it tonight. They're just gonna see, we got a 10% increase on our taxes during COVID, and, they're gonna get upset. But if you put any money towards it this year, towards that tax rate, you're gonna have to make it up again next year.
It's all based on the March votes and the extra money that you put towards the tax rate at the end of last year. That's what it is.
Even though our budget stayed within the 3 to 5% last year.
Yeah, it's because you're going up, 76 cents from this year from last year is because of that default budget. So that's not all just you increasing your budget. Part of that was because you were in the default by $2 million.
What you're saying is we should stay at default budgets.
Well, no, because then the next time you don't, you're gonna end up going up even more.
Stay in the fall budget, your employees aren't gonna get their pay increases either.
But I do recommend that, when the warrant articles are brought before you for, approval to go on to the warrant, and I think there should be some serious discussion about possibly funding some of those using the fund balance. That would be your opportunity, Virgil, to use whatever, 500,000 or whatever.
Laura, can you tell us what the capital, the warrant articles last year cost in the tax rate? Can you give us that?
Yep, what you proposed was about $285,000, because the fire truck FEMA grant, I believe it was a FEMA grant, did not, so they put that 100,000 back in, so it was $185,000. Was your warrant article?
That's not gonna offset your tax rate much at 185. That's only gonna drop you down. $0.07. So does anybody have an idea?
You're telling me if we go to a default budget again,
Mm-hmm.
we've got to pay the difference in the next year's taxes?
Depending on what gets approved the following year. You raise taxes on whatever is approved at your town
Right.
meeting.
There are consequences to voting in a default budget. This is one of the consequences.
Yes, so that 2007, 19/12/79 was because you had a default budget.
So if we go to a default budget, you're telling me I'm,
500,000.
but you're telling me if I go to a default budget, my taxes are going up.
Right, but the following year they went up. So 2018, you had a default, 2019, we did a default budget. Okay, you still had your warrant articles. After that, for 2020, the town approved everything the Board of Selectmen recommended.
Before we even went to vote, we had set this tax rate.
Yeah, we used $500,000 to set.
Right.
Wait a minute, to set the tax rate for 2019, for 2020,
You're setting your rate right now
a year behind.
For this year,
on the appropriations we are spending right now that were already voted on in March.
Tax rate is basically a year behind, because you can't set your tax rate the year that you're gonna be in, because you don't know what your expenditure's gonna be yet. So in 2019, you had the default budget, 1279. Okay, you turned around, you put $500,000 with it, that lowered it even more. In 2020, the town approved basically everything the selectmen wanted. I think there was just a few articles that did not pass, full warrant articles, but the operating budget passed. So now we had to make up that money from the year before from the default budget, because we went up about 5%. So to offset that from the default budget, which was below, now you have 5%, you gotta come up with that extra 5% somewhere, because you haven't put $500,000 towards it yet. But even if you do, you're only saving 33 cents. It's not like you saved the year before in the default budget.
do the overlay.
Well, that's pretty good. You're not sitting on Main Street 7 days a week, 9 hours a day.
Yeah, and you just,
Chief, I need protection.
you don't want to use it, but you want to use it for the overlay.
Well, we have to for the overlay.
Don't have to anything.
Well, you gotta have the money there for abatements.
Yeah. But, you know, I know you want to use some of the fund balance. I agree. It should be used. Some of it should be used.
I'm just going to vote no
But
on the budget, yes.
let's wait
Don't get carried away, come on.
to the end of this month or so when you all get your warrant articles and you can figure out what you want to do with some of them. Even if you just do a couple at least, you know. You don't have to
Okay, a couple.
go crazy with it, but, you know, and then each year just reevaluate, and you add another one in, and then the next year another, you know. The goal is to, you know, fund them all, hopefully, except for the operating budget. You can't do that one, but that would be nice. It's just gonna take time. It's gonna take years to do this.
Gotta stick with it.
Well, gentlemen, need something from you. What you'd like to do?
So Liz, your recommendation again was what?
On the, portrait type document, the up and down one, the second line that shows the 27,000 for overlay, but 0 from fund balance, I recommend you do that.
Or I'll just go one with you. Just say it $1 million, $13.94, what's been set, what the RA is recommending. When you put $1 million towards it, you're gonna lower it down to new town rate, would be $13.39. Even for $1 million, you're still not gonna get down that $12 where we were. So if Liz could tell us that we had $700,000 coming back this year. I'd say road reconstruction next year could be funded by the fund balance. $950,000 and still leave you with the $2.2 million in there. That's the 60 cents hit on your tax rate right there, is that road reconstruction every year, $950.
And by every year, that's kind of level funded. It's all these other different things, you know, buying a new truck, doing a 5-year lease purchase, pay that thing off. You're saving interest.
Saving interest on it,
And,
yeah.
pay that thing off and, yeah, you can do it many different ways. That's just one.
No, it's just one. I mean,
Yeah.
that's out there, but every year we put that money aside, along with the highway block grant. It's not all the full $950, but I'm just giving that as an example. That's just one of those things you can do by the fund balance.
You know, this has been a difficult year on many levels, you know, the COVID expenses, the safety of employees, the extra supplies that have had to purchase, you know, and just everything combined, so.
And we'd heard in July that all the taxes came in under the 10% from where they normally are. We collected some back taxes that we hadn't anticipated, but this formula is started when did they start this? October, when you turned in the forms, all the revenue forms to DRA? Was it 1st October or starting in September?
September, we start the revenue fund.
Gentlemen, any recommendations, what you'd like to use? Do you want to use 0? Do you want to use 50, 100,000, 150, 200, 250? Or do you want to take Mr. McDonald's motion back again of 700?
I say we go with the 0.
This has to be done by the 12th, right? So taxes can go out and get everything back in, right?
It's gotta be before, like now. Because she still has to bring you the warrant.
Takes her
Like
about a
bringing
week
it in early.
to get it. So
Well, you're really putting us underneath the gun here. I can't even get anybody to make a motion.
we brought it to your attention.
No,
As soon as it's good,
We were just notified by the DRA on Friday, mid to late afternoon.
you could have sent all this to us on Friday. We could have drank on the weekend and figured out what we want to do.
I don't know, because there's quite a bit of explanation.
You see their voices going down over and over.
Quite a bit of explanation involved in here about this,
I understand,
You know,
yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
using the funds.
We've made them speechless.
Yes. Absolutely.
Looking at $1.15 increase, gentlemen, in the tax rate.
Lots to think about.
You use nothing, but that also hinders $27,000 in the overlay, which isn't much per se, even adding to the tax rate or taking away from the tax rate, because we had 20,000 last year. So $7, you really can't even count on the penny scale where it would be.
So, do you want to take a day or so to think about, I mean, there's nothing
We'd have to-
scheduled
we'd
for
have-
Wednesday
yeah.
night. You know, you could come back here in 48 hours and you could make a decision if you need to digest this some more.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
That's about the only night this meeting room is available this week.
Oh, I'm not in favor of taking money out of the fund balance to put towards our budget again, the operating budget.
Uh-huh.
No, because you just have to make it up next year again when they set the tax rate.
It's gonna snowball.
I mean, the only reason the tax rate originally went down last year was because of the default budget.
Right.
So what do you want a motion for? To approve the 27,000
That's what I was,
overlay and 0?
balance.
I'll approve the tax rate of $13.94. Or $13.95.
$13.95.
Yep, if that's what you gentlemen want to go with. That's using nothing out of the fund balance.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Motion been made by Mr. Holt to approve the new town of Alton's tax rate at $13.95. And that $13.95 includes $27,000.
$27,000. Yep.
Second by Paul Rochelle.
0 applied to the fund balance.
Open it up for discussion. Being none, I'll poll the board. Mr. Whitman.
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
Mr. Holt.
Yes?
Mr. McDonald.
No.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is in the affirmative.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Um,
Next item for you, ma'am.
Next item. All right, so, the emergency management team is requesting that the Board of Selectmen send a letter to the state in regards to possibly providing a porta potty beside the parking lot on Reed Road due to, some issues with people in the woods using the
Okay.
bathroom.
We'll bring the chief up.
I would ask that you consider bringing the emergency management director up to the table to maybe explain it a little more, answer your
Yep.
questions.
Yes, sir. You join us, chief.
Happening up there like an bag.
Here.
So, a couple parts to this request. One is obviously, we've had, the congestion with the hiking, parking, spread out to a lot of other areas. Now that Reed Road has become a lot more known and it's taking on a lot more traffic. We realized, I sent one of my officers around to figure out what there are for facilities for the hikers with the large numbers that we're getting. And, Mount Major has 8 porta johns on the bank, which seems to work well for the crowd there. But, we found out that Reed Road has nothing in that trailhead parking. So that means anybody who needs to relieve themselves is doing it in a residential area or a tree line. And that's just not conducive to, good sanitary
So
practice.
you have to get a hold of the Forestry Society.
Right.
Yes.
It's, Parks and Forest is what that run these, but, there was, I know there was a lot of discussion that went on, because that parking area was recently, isn't that old. It was a lot of, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of discussions, and the state wanted that, so I don't think that there would be a lot of pushback at that level if they, wanted this parking land so badly to put some sort of facility out there. I mean, Reed Road is well, we've had some issues where the road has been narrowed down, shut down because of the traffic on the side of the road. The residents have experienced a lot more difficulty up there than they've had.
So the parking lot is big enough.
And, yeah, I mean, it's really not a lot of room up there, but now the houses are being built on that portion of the road up in that area. It's heavily populated too.
I thought we only put one house up in there at the end towards there,
And there's
because
two
the rest of the
driveways.
roads are class 6 still.
Yeah, there's 2.
How are they getting permits?
They are.
Well, that's not for us to discuss, that's for us to bring in Mr. Devers on. Let's just stick to the porta potty issue.
Well, I just think that, the big issue is, and it's up to the board as to what they want to do, but when you're providing an area gathering into a hiking or any sort of stay-home gathering area like that, it's like a rest stop. People are gonna be pulling in, they're gonna be on, they're gonna be hiking, they're hydrating, that's all encouraged behavior while you're out there. It's inevitable, somebody's gotta use them. They don't necessarily need 8 porta johns up there because that would take up the whole parking lot.
Yeah.
But one, I think, is a reasonable request from the Parks Department to.
Well, the one to ask would be Gene Young or Russ Wilder to deal with the guys up there. Give them a hint to put a bigger parking lot in too.
But also, part of the discussion we had with that too is not knowing whether or not they actually pull those during the winter months. I think
pretty sure that it would hinder their plowing efforts.
Yep.
If they left, especially the 8 of them up in Mount One.
Right.
So our thought is that they're not gonna do anything, anyways throughout the winter months because it's not gonna be heavily populated. I don't know if they plan on, actually plowing out Reed Road, during the winter. I know they do Mount Major, but, Reed Road is, I get to actually be up there myself during the winter months to see it. So we're thinking that the letter or whatnot would be sort of preemptive for next spring.
That was just what I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
If there was anything you felt as though you needed now, or you wanna wait till spring?
Well, I mean, it would be, I figure, the other requests that we've put to the state level have taken some time to process, so I'm figuring getting it out over the winter months would preempt it for the springtime.
Correct.
But, we're definitely seeing, things slowing a little bit now that the weather's
Sure it
getting a little cold. The last few weekends haven't been too crazy. But, it's gonna dwindle more, especially with the effect.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not asking us to fund it?
Oh, no. This was a request to be put on the people that are running, which is the port, what is it, park?
Like they do in Mount Major.
Town parks.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think the town should fund it.
I don't either.
But I do think if there's gonna be a state park trailhead, it's gonna be, in their it's advertised on every hiking site, everything out there. And the state's advertising at that level. I think there's really an obligation to us, at least one facility.
Yeah, at least.
I
Yeah,
agree
go
with
for
that. I think so.
And the issue has been heightened, obviously, by everything we've been dealing with this year.
Yeah.
Someone, do I have a motion to request that the police chief send a letter to the state of New Hampshire requesting a porta potty up on Reed Road for the hiking trail and parking? Stay established.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Made by Reuben Wentworth to request the state send a letter to the state for proposed porta potty at Reed Road for the hiking area they established, second by Paula Rochelle. Any discussion? Poll the board, Mr. Whitman.
Yeah.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
Mr. Holt.
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yeah, votes in affirmative. Thank you, chief.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
The next item I have has to do with, Mill Pond subwater shed report discussion. Jean Young of the Conservation Commission, is requesting a meeting, with the board, and folks that, from Horsley Witten Engineering in regards to the Mill Pond subwatershed report. So I'm looking, I guess, for.
How about how about our first meeting in the summer as a board of selectmen, and you keep the agenda short for us that night, especially we're gonna meet with an hour on it.
Which one was that? December?
First meeting of December.
Sure, yep.
We should be wrapping up the budget by then anyways.
Yep.
You gentlemen agree with that?
Yes.
Sounds good? Okay.
Okay, thank
That was
you.
easy.
All right, and then, I have two more things. You have all talked about having another meeting in regards to the School Street and Church Street Road reconstruction discussion and finalization. Do you want to have a separate meeting for that? Do you want to,
Well,
is that a regular meeting? And it would, if you wanted the highway manager here, it
Well,
would depend on.
correct, he's on vacation, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in tonight as Mr. Citizen and Highway Agent.
Loves the town hall.
He said he'd be here for the next one.
You want that on the next agenda?
I would like to have it on next agenda.
Okay.
When I get it done, trying to pick out dates in between this week would be a little tough, only because you got the election, and we all have to be a part of the election tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they have other meetings this week, too.
Yes. Thursday night for me.
And then the last item I have is in regards to, an extra meeting in regards to the Highway Department / Public Works Department
I'd like
discussion.
to have that just as a workshop, nothing else on it.
That's what we wrote down as a workshop.
So, I have a calendar
Okay, hold on.
with availability date of this room.
I'm gonna look at my own calendar here.
This week, there's Wednesday, upstairs is available, or downstairs. Thursday, downstairs is available.
Let's go next week.
Okay, next week,
Do we have a budget work session Monday night?
yes.
And then, yeah.
What's left on it besides health insurance?
Well, I'm still waiting for the admin budget for the NHMA dues, so that's gonna have to come back to you again, that budget.
All right. I'd like to bring up the health insurance again and possibly see if it's time to maybe get some quotes out there. I saw some other towns are doing the same thing. The chief brought me requests for proposals from that the city of Laconia just put out. Like to see if possible, maybe we could do that if we could save $100,000 this year. I mean, it'd be exceptionally well if we could.
The open enrollment is the month of November,
Who's that?
the open enrollment.
Open enrollment?
I don't know if you're gonna do that this year.
Well, we got to do something because you just tell the people.
We can't buy insurance, have people
Your
join.
employees can make changes to the health insurance plan in the month of November for a January effective date.
It's this new federal law shit that they, new federal law stuff they got. That our elected officials are not helping us get under control.
Anything to screw you.
So next week, in regards to the public works discussion, Tuesday upstairs is available. We're closed Wednesday.
How's Thursday look?
That was the 12th, yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing.
Budget committee's meeting in the Heike room, but that's really strange, because if no one's upstairs, they should be meeting upstairs. So I don't know if there's something upstairs that's not on this list or not.
12?
Well, the only
Find
reason
out.
I state that I just like to have that only thing on the agenda, Mr. Roberts is on vacation, I'd still like to have him here. I believe he said he was willing to come in for that, to sit with us, talk with us about it, how we're gonna formulate it.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I want that, the only thing on the agenda, so we can talk specifically about that and get it done.
So I have to be at the budget committee
Me too.
Thursday.
Me too.
So Thursday may not be.
Would you
a
say
good
Tuesday?
night. Thursday.
No.
So Tuesday upstairs next week is available.
Monday night though, what do we,
Zach.
we know what we have on the budget for Monday night?
Yeah, there are a few.
That meets up here, right?
All right,
Sounds
so
good.
Tuesday night, gentlemen,
I can't do it.
Zach,
How about Monday night, or?
if you only thrust the budget
no.
out. Because I want to just specifically talk on that, especially with Mr. Roberts willing to come in on his vacation. And the same with the school street and stuff.
How about the next week, which would be the 16th, Monday night's out. Tuesday night, Heike room is available. Wednesday night, upstairs is available.
Agenda, I can do it right Monday night.
What?
The agenda is the budget on Monday night. She still has a couple of budgets. We could just do, I don't want it to be interrupted by anything else.
The Heike
Right,
room
that's what I'm
is,
saying, just change one of our meetings.
the Heike room is, forget it, that's a regular meeting. Okay. And then the following week, the 23rd.
No, that's getting too late. We gotta get this done.
What's the 18th look like?
Let's go back to a Monday night, even if we gotta push the budget out a week.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Let's go to next Monday night, supposed to be budget night, we'll just change it.
for the 9th?
Okay.
Next Monday.
Yeah.
The ninth,
Regular meeting, we just change out the budget and.
we have to put our budget workshop on the next selectmen's meeting, we'll do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's get this done because we want to get it out to advertise, but then let's get the school street one will be done at the next meeting, correct? School Street, Church Street, we said at the next
Next
selectmen's
agenda.
meeting, next agenda.
Yep.
Okay.
That would be on the 16th then.
16th. What else, ma'am?
Wait a minute,
16th to be.
They're both Monday nights.
Yeah, we'll just.
Next Monday night, the 9th, would be discussing public works.
Mr. Roberts, does that work for you? Okay, sir, thank you.
Public Works on the 9th,
Yeah, we're taking away the budget out of that night.
Take the budget
out.
Bring the budget down the following Monday.
the 6th. Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, Moving on to approval of minutes, October 14th, 2020 budget meeting.
Make a motion, we approve October 14th, 2020 budget meetings, minutes.
I'll second that.
Made by Mr. McDonald to approve the October 14th, 2020 budget meeting minutes, second by Mr. Holt. Any discussion? Poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Wentworth, yes. Vote is in the affirmative. October 19th, regular meeting.
Make a motion, we approve the meeting, a regular meeting, October 19th.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Whitman to approve the October 19th regular meeting minutes, second by Paul Rochelle. Any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Votes in the affirmative. Motion to approve the October 19th, 2020 non-public.
I recommend that you keep these sealed.
Make a motion to approve the October 19th, 2020 non-public session, not to divulge.
Second.
Motion made by Paul Rochelle to approve the October 19th non-public session and not to divulge, second by Mr. Whitman. Any discussion? Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. October 24th, site walk minutes.
I move we approve October 24th sidewalk minutes.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Holt to approve the site walk minutes on October 24th, 2020, seconded by Paul Rochelle. Any discussion? Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Actually, I think Mr. McDonald has to abstain, he wasn't there.
That's right.
The one I,
That's when you slept through, because you worked in the group all day the day before. Mr. McDonald?
no, abstain.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt? Yes. Mr. Wentworth, yes. Votes in affirmative, one abstention. Mr. McDonald is the abstention. October 26th, budget meeting.
Make a motion to approve October 26th, 2020 budget meeting.
Second.
Motion was made by Paul Rochelle to approve the October 26th, 2020 budget meeting minutes, seconded by Mr. Holt. Seeing there was two there. Any discussion? Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Holt? Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt? Yes. Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is approved. Vote is affirmative. Consent agenda approval, gentlemen. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted to us on November 2nd, 2020. Assessing Department, Conservation Commission, Emergency Management, and Highway Department.
Make motion to approve consent agenda November 2nd.
Second.
Motion made by Paul Rochelle to approve the consent agenda as presented to us November 2nd, 2020. Second by Mr. Whitman. Any discussion? Poll the board. Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is the affirmative. Discretionary action on requests for appointments, no discussion, majority vote required, to allow or not to allow. John Elderly, Jr. discussion.
So you have in your binder, an email. So at the last meeting, you wanted to wait on meeting with this gentleman. And so, until I could talk with the attorney, and he is recommending that you not meet with him because of the threat of litigation. And that instead, the town attorney, myself, and the highway manager and the Parks and Rec director meet with this gentleman to talk about it and bring him up on everything. See how it goes.
I agree.
Okay.
Sense of the board is agreeable?
Yes. Yes.
Then you will have, you and the Parks and Rec director will be present on this.
Mm-hmm.
You got, if the highway agent's back from vacation, will you bring him? Because he's
Yes.
basically the one that kind of laid it out down there and
Yep.
knows more.
The four of us will meet with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Being nothing else, gentlemen, I'd entertain a motion to go into non-public session underneath RSA 91-A:3, paragraph 2A.
Oh, move, Mr. Chairman.
Made by Mr. Wentworth, going to non-public session underneath RSA 91-A:3, paragraph 2A, second by Mr. Holt. Any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Holt?
Yes.
Yes. Folks, we are in non-public session now at this point. We will reconvene in public session when we come out. Good evening, folks. We're back out of non-public session, 8:37. I'll entertain a motion from the Board of Selectmen not to divulge the non-public session underneath A, effective adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, and B, render a proposed action ineffective. Second. Motion made by Reuben Wentworth not to divulge the non-public session, second by Mr. McDonald. Under A, effective adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, and B, render a proposed action ineffective. Second by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Wentworth, yes. Votes in the affirmative. And gentlemen, at this time, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rochelle to adjourn at 8:38, second by Mr. Whitman. Any discussion? I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald? Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle? Yes. Mr. Holt? Mr. Wentworth, yes. Votes affirmative. Folks, thank you for joining us.